Hi, and welcome to Focal Point AFR Talk, this free-for-all Friday edition of Focal Point. Glad to have you in the conversation today. Don't forget, this month we are partnering with World Concern to bring the 44-cent cure to as many children in the third world as we possibly can. Now, you got parasites over there. They can pick up these parasites through the bottom of their feet. They can pick them up in unclean water. They can pick them up in contaminated food. And these parasites get into their systems. These are children now we're talking about. These parasites rob their bodies of nutrition, in particular rob their bodies of vitamin A, which can contribute to blindness. And yet for 44 cents, a child can be cured of those parasites. Their bodies can become stronger, making them able to fight off things like malaria and cholera. World Concern can come in behind them then, give them a clean source of drinking water, and give them lessons on sanitation and hygiene. But it begins with this 44-cent cure. So you give a gift of $44, you can cure 100 children. Maybe save their lives, save them from disease, protect their eyesight, restore to them their dreams. It's a remarkable thing. 44 cents. You can cure 100 children for $44, and then it goes up from there. If you can contribute $88, that'll cure and care for 200 children. So have your credit card ready. Call 800-700-8084. That's 800-700-8084, or you can give online at afr.net. Now, here's a little audio piece featuring someone whose life was touched by this 44-cent cure. Let's listen.
My name is Karen Boy. I am 9 years old.
My name is Caleb. I am 9 years old. There was a time that I was very sick. My head was aching, my shoulders and legs were aching, and I could not walk. And I thought that maybe I will die of hunger. I even thought I will not see my parents again. When we were given the dewormers, I learned that I have to clean my hands after I visit the toilet or the bathroom. I also have to clean my hands before I eat food. Once I was given the dewormers, I have never had that same feeling, and I have never been sick again with malaria.
So that's a young boy whose life changed, his health radically improved and changed by the 44-cent cure. Again, 44-cent cure, 800-700-8084, or you can give online at afr.net. Well, let's go to the phones, Free for All Friday. Let's go to Pete in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Pete, welcome to Focal Point. What's on your mind?
Hey, Brian, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. Go right ahead.
Hey, thank you for taking my call, sir. I appreciate all you're doing, American Family Radio, AFA, Family Research Council. There's so much to talk about, but I have a couple quick points and a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Heinous. It's murder. Nancy Pelosi. When their faith teaches that abortion is murder, but yet she thinks a woman's reproductive rights trumps that. So enough about that. Of course, what's happening in Benghazi is just heinous. I don't even comprehend how they could cover that up. But the point I was going to try to make, on the last segment we had Dr. Richard Land, wonderful man. I know he's godly. I've listened to some of his messages. But how can somebody like that, as so many of our other evangelical brothers and sisters, get this thing about immigration? How could they be so wrong about that? They keep calling them undocumented workers. And then he says, well, then we got to do a background check, make sure they've committed no crimes here in the U.S. or wherever they came from. Well, they've already committed a crime. They've broken the law. They're illegal. And, then my boys and other people I know try to use a story about Jesus, said we should be kind to the sojourners. However, aren't the sojourners, forgive my ignorance of the Lord's word, but weren't they just like temporarily passing through and they never really had a home to begin with from where they departed?
Yeah, that's what the word sojourner meant. It meant somebody was going to stay there temporarily and then they were heading back home. Right. And the other thing here, Pete, and again, there are a whole cluster of evangelical leaders, and I part company with them on this. I think their position, I have enormous respect for Dr. Land and for a lot of these evangelical leaders that are a part of this amnesty move. They're pro-amnesty, and I find it inconsistent because if you're granting amnesty, you are rewarding lawbreaking. And what the Judeo-Christian tradition is about as it comes to culture is the rule of law. It's a very, very important thing. when you talk about compassion, I think you've got to talk about at some point the compassion has got to take into account the impact that the illegal aliens have on the welfare system, have on our healthcare system, have on our educational system, have on the domestic tranquility of our cities when you have gangs coming in and all that. You know, where is the compassion, you know, for those that are affected by it?
What I'd like to tell people is our love and our compassion is, yes, we love you and we forgive you. Now go back and get in line behind the other 4 million that are waiting in line. You know, wait your turn and come in the front door.
Well, absolutely, Pete, and I think that's a good point. You know, one of the things we always ought to remember in this debate is we are not taking away anybody's pathway to citizenship. They have a pathway to citizenship. Every illegal alien in America has right now, as we speak, a pathway to citizenship, and that is just what you said, Pete, to go home and wait in line like everybody else.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
All right, Pete, I appreciate that very much. Thank you for that call. So again, I you know, and you think about when Moses led the people of Israel through the countries of Moab and Edom, when they were coming out of Egypt. And remember, Moses asked permission to go into their countries. There were borders there. He knew where the borders were. He asked permission from the king of Edom and the king of Moab if he could go into their borders. They were going to pay for the water that they consumed. They were going to pay for the food that they drink. We would just like permission from you to enter. The kings of Edom and the king of Moab said, no, you can't come in. And Moses did not trespass. He didn't simply cross their borders. He acknowledged their national sovereignty. He respected it. He turned and went around them. So he respected their national sovereignty. He respected their borders. And so that's an example. And don't forget, you know, Sandy Rios has made this point. When Paul was dealing with Onesimus was breaking the law by going and hanging out with wherever he was hanging out. And Paul said, look, you're breaking the law. You need to go back where you came from. And so, again, we see abundant examples of how that's the Judeo-Christian tradition. All right, let's go to Leon, Huntsville, Texas. Leon, welcome to Focal Point, Leon, with Brian Fisher. What's on your mind?
Well, I was reading, first of all, Mr. Fisher, I love your show, and I love what y'all are doing there.
Thank you.
But I was reading the reports about this man in Ohio that had the women captive in his basement.
Yes.
And one of the women, he forced her to abort 4 of her babies, and now the prosecutors are seeking the death penalty for the 4 children that were aborted. And it just kind of made me think that there should be a correlation between what he did to kill those babies and what's being done in abortion clinics now.
Yeah, and with the Gosnell thing. Well, listen, Leon, I appreciate that. And Jeff, do you have your mic on? Jeff Reed, my broadcast engineer, producer, we were talking about that this morning, Jeff, and you were basically making the same connection that Leon was making about the possible murder charges for these forced miscarriages and what's going on with Gosnell and abortion in general.
Right. I mean, here's one guy that does it by punching a woman in the stomach, and doctors take babies apart or stick a needle through their chest to kill them. One gets paid for it, and the other one gets a murder charge.
Yeah, and it's just it's just grossly inconsistent. It's not rational whatsoever, and goes back to what we were talking about earlier. The left, secular fundamentalists, they are irrational. They pride themselves on being educated and intelligent and all that, but their thinking, their view of life is completely irrational, and they very, very quickly get into these massive self-contradictions. Let's go to Mark in Jacksonville, Florida. Mark, welcome to Focal Point. What's on your mind?
Yeah, how you doing?
Good.
I'm just curious, I always hear, I feel sorry for you that they're jumping on you about the gay thing.
Uh-huh.
But how come you or other people don't bring up the fact that, according to what I understand, I've read in USA Today, that there's only a percentage worldwide, the gay community is less than 5%.
That's correct.
Why don't you emphasize that? Or how come the people emphasize that and say it's just their PR people that make it seem like it's 50% of the population that gay when it's only less than 5%?
Yeah, well, that's exactly right, Mark, and I appreciate that. And we do talk about that frequently. I know you're not able to listen to all the program, every day and listen to the entire program, but we do frequently talk about the fact that according to UCLA, The homosexual population in the United States is 3.4%. That's if you had male homosexuals and with lesbians, the total 3.4%. If you talk about people that are exclusively homosexual, that number is down around 2%. So they have a political power far out of proportion to their actual size. Well, listen, thanks, Mark. I appreciate that. Good reminder. Let's go to Noah, Fort Smith, Arkansas. Noah, got about a minute. What's on your mind?
Muldrow, Oklahoma, winnable war moment. Muldrow, Muldrow in eastern central Oklahoma, right here on the border with us at Fort Smith. The public school system at Muldrow High School wanted to remove the Ten Commandments monument. Students rallied and they're starting a petition right now to keep it. And we rent kayaks, canoes, and pedal boats at a local city park and are reaching out to the parents of these students with free rentals. And I exhort all business leaders and community leaders to do the same wherever they are, to encourage the fighters, those on the front lines. And appreciate your show, and keep up the fight. God bless.
All right. Thank you, Noah, very much. Appreciate that. That's fantastic news. And, at some point, this is what has to happen. And I'm actually going to go out on a limb and say that I believe at some point we have to have school district superintendents and school boards who will defy judges. I'm not talking about defying the law. I am talking about defying activist judges who misinterpret and misapply the Constitution of the United States. There is absolutely no prohibition in the Constitution against prayer in schools. It is not in there. There's no prohibition against prayer at graduation. It is not in there. No prohibition against the Ten Commandments on school grounds or city grounds. It is not in there. So it's not the Constitution that prohibits that. It's activist judges, and freedom will come when school boards, city councils just say, hey, we can read the Constitution just like you can, Judge. We are going to refuse to obey your unconstitutional order. We're going to pray. Focal Point, AFR Talk.
America.